Hey guys, in this video, Hobby Portal sent me the latest multi-protocol transmitter from Jumper, the T12. This uses the same form factor as the T8 V2, but instead of running Deviation TX, it runs the more popular OpenTX firmware. So I'll quickly unbox the T12. So it comes in this nice little box, and it doesn't come with a case anymore like the original T8 or V2. It just comes in this clear plastic packaging. And there is the T12. There are some spare parts. This looks like it's for like the gimbals or something. Some screws and stuff, as well as a mini USB cable, probably to hook it up to your computer to flash the firmware or copy some models. And there is the T12. It's in sort of an off-white color, and as usual it comes with the standard jumper, orange jumper neck strap. And there's also a sheet of paper, which is the instruction manual. You know you're not going to read that. So here it is side by side with the T8 V2 Plus. And it looks very similar in terms of the shape and everything else, like the shell and the buttons and the switches. Everything is very much the same except for the color. So let's just take a really quick look at this thing right now. And like I said, it hasn't changed much from the V2 Plus. On the back, you'll find the JR module bay with the JP 4-in-1 module. And on the front, you'll find 3 position switches on 4 of them. And on the tops, that's where you find the 2 position switches. So these one right here are 3 position, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And the same over there, and the top ones on the top are just 2 position. On the sides you'll find the auxiliary dials. There's one on the right side here, and there's also one on the left side. Now let's take a look at the back and take a closer look at the JP 4-in-1 multi-module. It's essentially the same as the other 4-in-1 modules I've reviewed before, like the iRange X IRX 4 Plus. And here I'm taking out, and you'll see the module itself here, and it's a standard type of JR module, and you can use that with other transmitters as well. So on the bottom here, it uses it comes with a battery tray so that you can use 4 AA batteries. In fact, it's the same battery tray as the one on the T8 V2. It uses 4 AA batteries, or you can plug in a 2S LiPo. At the top of the radio, you'll find 2 ports, the 3.5mm jack as well as the mini USB port, and that is used for flashing the firmware as well as copying models and whatnot onto the onboard storage. And that's pretty much it in terms of a walkthrough of the radio. So at the bottom near the battery tray, there is also a micro SD card slot for you to insert one, and this way you can essentially back up your models to it or restore models from it, as well as flash the firmware. Like you could put a bin file in there, and also there's voice files you can add. You do, however, need to get the SD card contents from OpenTX.org. So go there and download the latest version of it for this transmitter, and you can find it in the download links here. And make sure you choose the one for the OpenTX X7, and then download the latest version of it. And then what you want to do is unzip the package and then copy it to the SD card, and then you can plug it into your put it into the T12's micro SD card slot. Hold down the power button for a couple of seconds and it should turn on.
Welcome to OpenTX.
If you copied the SD card contents, you'll get the audio during startup. So hold down the left arrow for a couple of seconds and you'll be brought into the radio setup. And this is where you can change the low voltage warning. If you don't do this, what will happen is your radio will constantly beep. So I set this to 4 volts because I'm using AA batteries. But if you're going to use a 2S LiPo, you may want to set this to say 7.4 volts. Next, we'll go through the various menus. So if you hit right, you'll see if you have an SD card, this will show up showing you all the folders that are on the micro SD card. And you get this from copying the SD card contents. And next is global functions, the trainer setup, and this is where it tells you which version you're running. So it appears that the T12 is running a build of OpenTX that is made for the Taranis X7. If you want to go to the previous page, hold down the right button, and if you want to advance, just quickly tap on the right button. And those essentially are the 9 menus that are on the radio setup screen, calibration screen. And then if you hit it again, you'll go back to page 1. And to get out of the screen, just hit the back button and you'll be back to the main screen. Since it's based on the V2 model of the T8SG and not the V2 Plus, it doesn't have the Hall sensor gimbals or the larger OLED screen, but it's still a very capable radio. The T12 doesn't have the multi-protocol 4-in-1 chip internally anymore. Instead, Jumper decided to use an external module, the JP 4-in-1, which makes sense since it has the JR module bay on the back. This not only reduces costs, but this module can also be taken out and used with other transmitters. If I'm not mistaken, it looks like the JP 4-in-1 is based on the other 4-in-1 modules that I've reviewed before, so they most likely will run the same code as the Multi-protocal TX module repository. The 4-in-1 module that it comes with, the JP 4-in-1, has 4 RF chips, the CC2500, CYRF, A7105, NRF24, and is what makes this radio capable of speaking numerous protocols including FrSky, FlySky, SEMA, Hubsan, DSM, and tons more. I was a big fan of the T8SG V2 and V2 Plus, however, it seemed like it was missing something. After using OpenTX for many years on my Tyrannus and 9XR Pro, it's kind of grown on me, and as powerful as Deviation TX is, I prefer OpenTX. It's just a matter of preference when it comes to what firmware you want to run OpenTX or Deviation TX. I've used both throughout the years, and having owned the Volcara Devo radios that run Deviation TX and FrSky Tyrannus that run OpenTX, at the end of the day, they both do the same thing. And in my opinion though, Deviation TX is probably simpler and easier to program for newcomers. However, once you get the grasp on how to program for your models, the concepts are relatively the same on both platforms. I also think there's more online resources for OpenTX if you run into issues. When you think about it, the T12 is really good value for the money if you break it down. The JP 4-in-1 module alone sells for about $40, and hopefully Jumper will let you buy just the transmitter separately. This way, if you already have, like say, an iRange X 4-in-1 module or some other module, you don't have to pay for something you don't need. If this is your first hobby grade transmitter, this isn't a bad option. Let's face it guys, there's tons of options out there and it's a good thing, but it really boils down to your budget and what you need. If you need a small compact radio, the Jumper line fits the bill. Now with the T12 and the T8SG V2, you have a choice of either OpenTX or Deviation TX. It's a tough call since both are pretty nice radios and priced roughly the same. I can't say which will work better for you, but in my opinion, OpenTX seems to be more popular and there are a lot of tutorials online. Not saying the Deviation TX community isn't great either. They have a forum and lots of helpful people on there. Also, if anything, the Deviation community also created the multi-protocol modules that we see today. Without their innovation, we wouldn't see the multi-protocol modules in OpenTX at all. Now I'll show you how to set up a simple 5-channel model for the X68T quadcopter as an example. Select an empty slot and choose Create Model. Give it a descriptive model name. Scroll down and disable the internal RF module and make sure you enable the external 4-in-1 RF module by choosing MULT. Next, select the Bayang protocol. Last thing is to make sure you enable auto bind. Next, we will set up the flight mode. Go to the mixer page and scroll down to channel 10. Give the mix a name like mode. For the source, choose the switch you want to use, and that's all you need to do to set up flight mode for acro or self-leveling. For this OpenTX radio and the 4-in-1 multi-module, it uses channel 10. Other radios may use a different channel, so you may have to experiment to find the right one. To bind the quadcopter, first plug up the battery and the LED light should be flashing, and then on your transmitter, hit the left arrow button really quickly and it will bring up the model selection screen. Hit the right button and then go down to bind and initiate the bind. So right there, and then what you want to do is hit enter and Once it's bound, the light should stay solid like that. And then if you test out the switch that we programmed earlier on channel 10, it should turn the light off. And this tells you which mode it's in. And then if you move the throttle stick as well, it should begin to spin the propellers like this. So that's when you can test that it is properly bound to the quadcopter. Jumper has a good selection of radios now, but hopefully they'll come out with a plus model with a larger OLED screen and the same Hall sensor gimbals that were in the T8SG V2 Plus. It's a real tough one for me now in terms of like favorite OpenTX radio. You know, the FR Sky Taranis 9XD, QX7, or the Jumper T12. The cheapest Taranis X7 runs about $100, and when you add in a 4-in-1 module from say iRange, it comes to about $140. So the T12 is only $100 or so with the module, so it's very good value for the money. That's it for this review. I'd like to thank Hobby Portal for sending this out for me to try. I'll leave links to everything I mentioned in the description, and I'll see you in the next video.